So it's funky resin time, or rather funky coloured resin time. So today I'm just going to be showing you this set of powders that I've found on Amazon. I bought a few different types of mica and pigment and all different kinds of stuff to mix in resin. Some stuff works really good and some stuff works not so great. A few people saw the glow in the dark video with the lit glow powder. This stuff, which is absolutely amazing. It's like probably one of the most powerful glow in the dark powders you can get, pigments. And obviously I had to use a pump to pump that around because it would settle. So what I'm going to show you today is just what you don't need any pumps, anything special, nothing, just basic clear resin. You can use any resin as well, but I prefer to use Elegoo ABS light resin just because the ABS light resin is slightly thicker than it's got higher viscosity than the standard resin, so, and it's stronger anyway. So I'll just quickly show you some of these colours and what they look like. So I think this is blue green and this is fuchsia. This print failed because it was on I was testing my original Mono X, which actually broke, and Anycubic sent out a replacement Z motor. So obviously I fitted the Z motor and tried to print, and the problem's still exactly the same. So it's not the Z motor. And then this one failed on my new printer, which is only about 6 weeks old. The motor died completely, dead. I had to, because Anycubic sent out a spare motor, I actually used that motor in my new one. So I got that one. I got one of them back up and running, but I've done a video on that as well. I'll be uploading it soon. So it's pretty bad. Anyway, so back to pigments. This one it was like an experimental print, so I tried multiple techniques. So I let it do the gradual colour change, and then I wanted to know if you could actually add just colour to either one of these sections or intensify it, and you can. You don't without it banding. You do that. So say if I wanted just this section to be green, you just pour a little bit of green into the vat, and then use your little spatula thing to move it over to this area, and then it'll just print green in that area for a bit, and then you can just move the other colour back in and it'll go back to printing the other colour. So you can actually have just like spots of blue, spots of green, spots of gold, or you can just, if you wanted to, just band it, so you just got a straight colour change like that. You just pour it in. So if you add just a little bit of powder and add more resin, you get this pastel effect, which is actually kind of cool, really. It looks a lot better in person than it probably does on camera. And this is purple, actually it's fuchsia purple green, I think it was. I just used like a bit the leftover resin from these prints, but this is like what you want to be aiming for, which is like what I call a perfect transition, which is where it just gradually goes from purple to blue, and you get like the lilac in there. And to do this, all you have to do is pour a small amount. So when you decide, so say if it's a 4-hour print, about 1.5 hours in, you want to add a small amount of blue, and you want to push it over, and that's going to start creating the lilac sort of colour. Then after say an hour, you want to start tipping in more blue and just keep edging it over towards it, and that's when you're going to get that change. If I'd have added a little bit more blue towards the end of this print, the end would have been a little bit more blue. But it's a learning thing, you know. You don't know until you try. So. The other pigments I've got are the spray paint pigments. These are much bigger pigments. Well, they're not bigger pigments, they're actually finer than the mica, but they're heavier. So you can mix up a really good mix like this, but after 3 hours or so, it's going to start to settle out, and it's going to get to the point that it's going to be almost transparent, which I think makes a really, really cool effect, because it just does like a perfect transition, blue to clear. And then all you do is use your spatula to kick up a little bit of sediment at the end, and it will add the blue at the end. So it's going to be blue, clear blue. And these are those metallic colours. I really like this one. It reminds me of the Russian Fabergé, the blue that he used in a lot of his eggs and stuff. I like that. I like that colour. And I like this two-tone as well. I'm not sure, it's supposed to be green blue, but I think it's actually more green red. So depending on which angle you look at it, it's going to change colour. So you don't have to do anything with these, you don't need a pump. All you have to do is just tip some into the resin, mix it up really, really well, and then just tip it into the vat and start printing, and it will just naturally do that colour change. The only thing I will say is, before you tip it into the vat, tip it into another container. So mix it up really well, and just mix it up as well as you can. Get another cup and then tip it over, and anything that's stuck to the bottom of the cup, leave it. Don't try and pour it over, just leave that. They're just the really heavy particles that have settled out fast. So then I just give it a quick stir, tip it into the vat, and that's it, you're done. Just leave it to do its job. And I'd say you could get away with doing about 6 to 7 hour prints with these, no trouble. But these powders, these are the really good ones. I tried a few different micas out, and although they're fine powders, they're not very good. There's a guy on YouTube, I don't know his name, he did a unicorn, you've probably seen, he's got quite a big following. And he printed like a multicoloured unicorn, but it showed you him making this mix up, and I'm like, what are you doing? You can't just spoon it, you can't just spoon mica into resin like that. Most of this is really fine powder, and it's high quality, but there's still parts in there that are far from fine. So that's why you use spray paint filters. So you normally just take a small amount of mica, put it into your cup, and then just sort of tap at it, and you'll notice that there's a fair bit that stays behind. So well, sometimes it can be a fair bit, and they're all the particles that are too big, and they will ruin your print. They won't damage the FEP or anything, but they will definitely ruin your print, because you'll have like a big shiny chunk stuck in your print. This is you get semi colours in this pack actually, but it doesn't tell you on the outside, so I'll just show you quickly. You'll get fuchsia, light pink, violet, light green, bronze, brown red, sorry, red gold, black pearl, copper, rose gold, gold, that's a bright one, flash white, which is just a metallic white, purple, red, antique brass. I wouldn't bother making up the purple, because you are going to get a lot of purple, Yeah, light ocean blue, brown, silver, silk blue, blue green, that's a nice colour, golden green, grass green, wine red, moss green, coffee brown, purple gold, gold purple, sorry, orange brown, magenta and sky blue. So you get quite a fair few colours in each pack. I mean, there's some that you're probably not going to use so much, but they do mix together as well, so you can like make your own colours. You're going to find that you're going to end up with a lot of purple because whenever you tend to mix greens, reds with blues or anything like that, whatever you're left with, it's going to end up being purple. So like this is leftovers. This isn't like mica purple, this is leftovers purple. And you can actually see that it's got like a mix of blue in there and different colours. This is also used from the leftovers where I poured off the fuchsia and I just added it to these clear bottles. I know they say you shouldn't use clear bottles, but I've not had a problem with it. I just don't keep them in sunlight, obviously. I keep them in the cupboard, under the sink sort of thing. And I just use them when I need them. So I won't bother making any purple unless you need purple to start with. I'll make up some blue. Sorry, I'm not the best video. I don't normally make videos. Normally if I made this, I'd just keep it to myself and I won't say anything. But I started making videos, so it's just taking some getting used to. So once you've just tipped a little bit in there, you're going to want to just tap it. A little bit goes a long way. You just want to tap this, you don't want to force anything through. If you don't just want to go through the filter, leave it. Tip this into here. You can see that now, that looks pretty cool. And what I'll do with this is whatever's left, I'll just pour into one of these sort of like shampoo bottles. I bought them from Amazon and they're actually they're quite expensive. I think they're like £7 for 5. But Obviously it don't really make sense because you could just like go to the pound shop and buy 7 £1 bottles of shampoo and just tip it out or something. But they're a convenient size because you don't want to make up tons as well. You're going to need about this much for your base, for your base colour. So whatever you're going to put in the vat first, you're going to need about that much. Which these are 300ml bottles, so about 120ml. That will cover a Photon Mono X or a Saturn. If you've got one of the regular printers with a regular print size, then you can obviously just make up what you would normally use. But you only want to, if you're going to do a colour change, if you're going to do a transition, you do not want to put more than, say, no, it's about, see, one of these dental things, it's about what, 2ml, about 2.5ml of resin across the vat, because that goes along, it actually goes a long way. But obviously if you're doing a big print, then you can, like a vase or something, then obviously you're going to put more than that in. Just don't put loads of colour in. Like if I was to fill this whole bottle full and tip that in and I wanted to do a colour change, it's not going to work too well. You're going to end up with most of this colour because there's just that, it's just going to overwhelm whatever you pour into it. Whereas at the moment, because it's only about that, it's only about 3mm deep, when I pour this in, it's going to push anything that I put in there before it towards the model. That's if you're printing in the centre. If you're doing something bigger, then I recommend pouring onto the build plate. So wait till the light comes on. So when the UV light comes on, start pouring then. And as it starts, when the printed bed's coming back down, stop pouring, because everything will drip down off the build plate slow, not so much slow, but more evenly. So if you're printing a big model that's close to the edge of the build plate, just pour it on top, and it will pour down, and it will slowly start to move along. Obviously, if you're printing something that's in the centre, then do what I suggested originally. If it's printing something bigger that's closer to the edges of the build plate, pour it on top of the build plate. You can control it a lot more than what you think. If you wanted to use a 3-tone, so say if I was to do a vase, I can pour green onto one side of the build plate and orange onto another side of the build plate, and they'll come down and they'll merge together slowly. But if it's a big model and you try and pour it in at the edge, you're not going to get a transition. You're going to get a straight line, a straight colour change, which is fine. But obviously if you're doing like a nice vase or something, you want that swirling colour change. So yeah. So big objects, pour it on top of the build plate where you want it to be. Small objects, just pour it into the vat. You definitely have a lot more control over small objects. So we're going to take this now, we're going to pour it into the end of my print. So as you can see, I've got 33 minutes left to go, so it's right at the end of the print. This is a purple and blue print. I didn't want to just waste the purple that I collected from doing all those test prints, so we're just mixing this up. we're just going to pour. So we're going to wait for the light to come on. It's pushed over the mica from before, and now we're just going to push a little bit more over. And that's it. That will finish with a blue top, a blue blue point, well, bluer than the rest of it. But it's a good way to not waste the resin as well, because every time you print with these mixers, you're going to end up with like a multicoloured soup at the end. Now you can, if you carefully lift the vat, you can pour off each colour. So when I tip this vat, all this pinks, all this fuchsia is going to go over first. It's more like a purple fuchsia now, and you will see the blue sediment coming. You just stop pouring then, and then pour the blue into another one. But it won't be blue, it'll actually turn out to be like a purple colour. But it's better than ending up with just like a big bottle of purple. So obviously if you're going to be using greens and browns and stuff, then you can end up with like a metallic, murky, silvery, browny mess as well, like a beigeish colour. But the good thing about this as well is you can also just use this as normal resin. So like when I'm printing my models and stuff, it don't make a difference if it's got mica in it or not. It's going to get spray painted and stuff, so you can still use it as normal resin. But it will always, these mixes will always have some of the pigment remaining, so they will always be blue, they will always be pink or purple. The other pigments, right, these pigments, these will fall out of suspension. So if you made up a batch of blue, and as long as you leave the bottle for say 24 hours, 48 max, as long as you don't shake that bottle up, you'll be able to pour off all your clear resin almost. So you can get your resin back from that, but you can't get your resin back from this. Another thing I will say is, when you stir it up, make sure you don't stir bubbles into it, because if you put bubbles into it, those bubbles will make it into the model, and you'll see them in there. You'll see like little air bubbles in there. So you don't shake it up, you just want to stir it up.